Okay, so yesterday I went and saw District 9. What can I say about that? Except for the fact that the movie was freaking awesome! That is probably gonna be one of the top movies of the summer. It was just absolutely fantastic. Um, it's just amazing. It was an amazing piece of film. It was just. I hate to sound like super, but it really was that good. I can think of no flaws for this movie. I can think of why certain people wouldn't like the movie. Very strong language and a lot of gore. If you're a sort of sensationalist damage maniac, though, the gore will probably be yet another bonus for it. And if you like Fallout 3 and the Fallout 3 style of action and violence, you're gonna like the movie just for the action alone, because so much of the gore is taken straight out of Fallout 3. But the movie is absolutely brilliantly made, and I think people are gonna give Peter Jackson all of the credit, but the director, focus on the director, people. Neil Blomkamp, I think that's it. Neil Blomkamp was just absolutely great. And hopefully the success of this movie will send the message to Universal and Fox that says, stop kicking each other in the shins and get this guy back on the Halo movie. Because I think that if it turns out a third as good as District 9, it'll be really, really good. But anyway, I'm talking about District 9 here. The movie starts out really, really well, in a really, really good way, of setting up a sort of a documentary of the MNU, the Multi-Nation United, which is a corporation, it's basically, it's allegorical of the UN. And that's one thing that this movie has going for it. It has a subtle, but at the same time very distinct political sense to it. And I won't be surprised if more than a few people in South Africa, which is where the movie was shot, are a little ticked off at this, because, the apartheid wasn't that long ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if there are a couple of harsh feelings about that. But anyway, it starts out in the documentary, sort of the main character, Vicus, who works for the MNU, and it gives a little backstory on what's happened 28 years previously, sort of setting up an alternate reality. A giant alien spaceship came and settled down over the city of Johannesburg in South Africa, and people waited and waited. And there's sort of side interviews with people. One person said maybe people were expecting like heavenly music and a blast of light, and I'm like, well, no, that would be knowing. But anyway, and so they waited around, and eventually nothing happened. No alien crafts started blowing the crap out of everything. So eventually they just cut their way into the spaceship, and what they find, not an invading army, but a bunch of refugees, a bunch of starving refugee aliens. And so, out of the good of their hearts, yeah, right, they set up what is called now District 9, outside the city of Johannesburg, which is a sort of, it's basically a ghetto where the 1.8 million aliens have come to reside. And in this initial part of the movie, they set up a gritty realism, which I think was brilliantly executed. Like, there's some footage of like some sort of like an argument and even a fight between a couple of the prawns, which is what they call the aliens, and they are rather shrimp-like. They are sort of like humanoid shrimps. There's a fight that breaks out, I think in front of a gas station or whatever, between some humans and a group of prawns, and like there's footage of like rallies and stuff, both for and against what's going on with the prawns, and it's like if Earth was put in this situation, you could see this happening. You could see that this would be a realistic way that people would end up dealing with this, which I think was just brilliant. They just executed the real feel perfectly. And so now, because there's been so much difficulty and sort of just hostility between the humans and the prawns, they're going to actually basically evict all nearly 2 million aliens from District 9 and move them to a new location, which, it's supposedly a better place. It's more or less a concentration camp. It's going to be perhaps even worse than District 9. Definitely not better. It's just away from the humans. It's for the good of the humans, not the prawns at all. But the way that they set it up was just really, really well. And, I mean, it's obvious that the prawns have their own society here. And there are humans in District 9 as well. One thing that they establish is that there are a group of Nigerian criminals that exist in District 9, and they're sort of doing a lot of crime there. But just oh yeah, so the aliens have sort of set up their own little subculture, and they're doing the best that they can. One of the things that they say is that their leadership, all of the prawn leaders supposedly died out, so for whatever reason, and so all the current ones, they're just sort of the workers. And if you think of them as sort of like a hive society almost, think of ants, well, without the queen, what are they going to do? So they don't do very well thinking for themselves, supposedly, so they're just sort of getting by with what they can do. And in sort of, it's a funny thing, but you just pass it off as part of the way that things work, is that the prawns are super, super sort of addicted to cat food, and they actually use cans of cat food as currency among the prawns. But the big thing about the arrival of the prawns, once they realized that they were more or less peaceful, I mean, there's obviously a lot of violence, a lot of crime that occurs in District 9, but on the whole, they aren't marching against them. But the big thing about the arrival of the prawns was the potential to utilize their technology. And supposedly, MNU has become the world's second largest weapons producer and manufacturer. So if they could utilize the alien technology, and they've seen it in action, and believe me, it's awesome, the power. I mean, Tony Stark has just been pwned.